The first airport started from humble beginnings. In 1931, a group of local aviators requested that the city clear a local plot of land for use as a landing field. In June of that same year, an air show was held to dedicate that 150-acre facility off Whitesburg Drive. By 1934, the airfield had become a commercial facility with 4 dirt runways. In the 40s, more land was purchased by the city to expand the airport, relocating it to an area now known as the Old Airport, just off Airport Road.
We had 700 acres and earnestly took a look at expanding and staying here. Traffic was on the increase, jets were coming in, but so was the community. And we still had that problem of the 110-foot-high limestone hill.
You had to come over, had to fly over the quarry going in there. The pilots named it You Bet Your Life Airport.
In 1957, the first Airport Authority Board was named. Bob Baker, Robert Bell, Louis Gravenstetter, J.R. Smith, and Ed Mitchell, who would later be the executive director of Huntsville International Airport. City leaders hoped this group of visionaries could take the airport to new heights, as German scientists like Wernher von Braun were looking to put man on the moon. By 1963, Huntsville's population had hit 100,000, and the airport was experiencing even more demand for service. With 10,000 people boarding flights in Huntsville, more than doubling passengers for the entire year, only 10 years earlier. So it only made sense that the airport would have to grow to meet the demand. But the question remained, where would this airport go? So the Huntsville City Council tasked Ed Mitchell with finding a new plot of land. However, Mitchell already knew of the perfect place. It was one he'd seen many, many times on early morning drives down Highway 20 with Dr. Wernher von Braun, as they went duck hunting at one of their favorite spots in Triana.
He just happened to notice this property along the way, and he would clock it as he traveled down County Line Road.
Mitchell knew just how much land was needed to build a runway, so he had to make sure that it was just enough.
He checked and double-checked himself to be sure of this property, and even walked a lot of it.
Once he was sure, he took his findings back to City Council.
It wasn't without some consequences with the townsfolk. They thought it was too far out of town.
We went out to the local communities to discuss the planning, zoning, and other types of land use controls around the airport. In rural areas, people tend to shy away from discussing these things because they really don't know what they are. And because of this, the initial response from the farmers was somewhat apprehensive. It was really an educational process both for them and for us.
But it didn't take long to win all of them over. There was a vision there, and city leaders knew that other airports around the country had landlocked themselves with no room for expansion. And this stretch of land would break those barriers, providing a location for infrastructure needed not only for an airport, but for industry. After years of surveys, studies, and finally obtaining air clearance over the area, the Airport Authority acquired that 3,042-acre tract of land in 1964.
And when we did that, it just about knocked everybody out of their seats. The very idea of 3,041 acres of land for a town of 150,000 people for an airport. Don't need it, they said. We wanted 2 runways with 5,000-foot separation. 1,500 is enough. Well, I said, you can't move every 10 years, and you know very well it's going to cost a lot more tomorrow. Why can't we do it right the first time? I guess you'd have to say we had a little luck because the community growth made our airport land very valuable. And when we made the decision to relocate and build a new airport, we sold the old airport, supplying us with the necessary seed money for our new facility.
But more money was needed. North Alabama Congressman Bob Jones announced an FAA grant of over $940,000 for the construction of a new jetport, and the 8,000-foot runway was designated as the first construction project. However, this project didn't go without a little turbulence. As construction crews began working on the new runway, they ran into a little problem.
The thing was to drill it out and make sure that there wasn't any obstruction. Strangely enough, they missed a cave in the middle of the west runway.
Carl T. Jones called on his brother, the state geologist, to help.
He said, get me about a ton of dynamite, I'll tend to it. So he went down there and placed placed dynamite all down in the cave, and then they exploded when they exploded the dynamite, and they collapsed the cave in the middle on itself.
The building process would take more than 3 years to complete. In October of 1967, the site of the Huntsville-Madison County Airport was designated as Carl T. Jones Field in honor of Carl T. Jones, whose foresight and sound perception had contributed greatly to expanding the Huntsville city limits and establishing the new airport. On October 28, 1967, Decatur Pryor Field and Huntsville Airport were both operating passenger travel, but at 11:59 p.m. as a part of the midnight merger, passenger travel operations halted and moved to the new facility, which was located geographically in between the two airports. On Sunday, October 29, 1967, the new jetport opened, and the nation was taking notice. It was always intended to be much more. So in 1971, Ed Mitchell was hired as the first executive director of the Airport Authority. It was at this time that he began developing his vision for a multimodal master plan, one that would turn a jetport into a jetplex and be a model for the transportation industry. The multimodal master plan included an industrial park, with its first tenant being Onan Corporation in 1974.
Onan Corporation over here is on the airport, 850 feet away from the runway. They make noise, we make noise, we're compatible. They also operate their own aircraft, and we ran a taxiway off the main runway right up to the front door. We're also putting in a railroad behind the building, so they have 3 modes of transportation, air, rail, and highway, all on their own lot.
But the hard work would continue as the new decade saw approval of the U.S. Customs Port of Entry status, another game changer. While a temporary status had been granted in early 1980 after the Carter visit, the airport landed permanent status in 1983. Next, the airport filed for and was granted the much-anticipated Foreign Trade Zone designation, the next logical step after gaining commercial port of entry status.
And since then, we've had a lot of major corporations to activate within the zone, save significant customs duties, which makes them more competitive to do business here in our community.
The huge dreams of an industrial complex anchored by a model airport were coming true. The construction of the multimodal and intermodal transportation facilities were underway and would eventually open in December of 1986.
And Ed Mitchell, he was confident. He had a vision, he knew what he wanted to try to accomplish, and he was going for it with everything that he had. And he was very convincing. He would go around, he had different scale models of this International Intermodal Center. He went through about 2 or 3 of those, and he would share the intermodal gospel to anyone that was willing to listen. So
the years to follow showed growth at the airport. And by 1990, Boeing had announced a 4th major building at the complex between the runways. The 15,130 square foot facility would house employees working on NASA's space station and the Army's missile defense, none of which would have been possible without Congressman Roddy Flippo's work to secure federal and state funding that was crucial to the initial Boeing project and many others to follow. In May of 1990, the Jetplex Industrial Supplier Park began development of 19 new lots covering 110 acres. The combined location of the industrial park, supplier parks, the airport, and the International Intermodal Center had proven to provide an unusual and beneficial combination for operations. In 1990, with 10 carriers and 900,000 passengers annually, airport officials developed a $50 million 2-phased capital improvements plan. The plan included a new concourse with 12 aircraft positions, renovation and expansion of existing facilities, and completion of other airfield projects, including extending the east runway to 10,000 feet. This change allowed nonstop air cargo service to Europe. The airport also garnered international acclaim with regularly scheduled international cargo flights. In 1991, an FAA study identified Huntsville International Airport as a potential connecting hub in the Southeast. Now this led the way to the completion of the master plan update for the Port of Huntsville, which showed the future development of 5 parallel runways. The result was the start of an aggressive land acquisition program for aviation and the industrial park growth. By 1994, Rick Tucker had been named the executive director of Huntsville International Airport. His degree in accounting landed him his first job, where he would crunch the numbers on the weekend and soak up everything he could during the week under his mentor, Ed Mitchell.
He was not very fond of bureaucracy slowing things down. And he wrote many letters to the FAA and to DOT. I know the local Jackson, Mississippi office, it became a badge of honor to really get one of these very intense, fiery letters from Ed Mitchell. He wrote one of those letters, and it was probably 5 or 6 pages long, and you know, it was building up to this crescendo, and at the very end he signed it "Love and Kisses."
The 90s continued to bring the arrival of the shuttle on NASA's 747 carrier aircraft, the launch of nonstop air service to Washington, D.C., doubling of the air cargo facilities, the announcement of Navistar's new manufacturing facility, and the start of construction for both the Smart Park parking deck and Panalpina's new 100,000 square foot facility. In addition, a name change, the Port of Huntsville. This allowed for rebranding to include the airport, Jetplex Industrial Park, and the International Intermodal Center. The turn of the century brought with it much change at the Port of Huntsville, like the addition of the Transportation Security Administration in response to September 11th, 2001.
When it was happening, I don't think most people realized the consequences of what it was going to mean. You knew it was a new day and things were going to change and had to change. It took a while to recover.
U.S. Senator Richard Shelby secured funding to extend the west runway at the airport from 8,000 to 12,600 feet, making it the second longest runway in the southeast and allowing direct air cargo service to Asia and the Pacific Rim. Another towering achievement came a few years later when Congressman Bud Kramer worked with the Department of Transportation and the White House to ensure funding for a $20.7 million control tower project that significantly improved safety at the airport. In 2007, the International Intermodal Center was named in honor and recognition of Ed Mitchell, the first chairman of the board of directors and the former executive director of the Port of Huntsville. In 2009, the airport underwent a multi-million-dollar facelift to update the terminal building. In 2010, the Port of Huntsville occupied nearly 7,000 acres and represented more than 24,000 jobs with an annual payroll of $1.1 billion. It was also a principal transportation hub for the Southeast and a global port for the world. That same year, Panalpina celebrated 20 years of operation at Huntsville International Airport. The 2010s also saw $70 million worth of ramp and runway improvements, representing more than $183 million in cargo infrastructure investment. 2012 marked the conclusion of a $92 million capital improvement plan, providing all new passenger screening, a new public waiting area, flight information system upgrades, completely renovated concessions, an expanded parking deck, and an upgraded baggage claim, all designed to meet the needs of the airport's growing number of passengers. In the last year, legacy carriers have doubled in capacity to several key markets, and 2 new airlines began serving HSV, Frontier Airlines, and Silver Airways. These accomplishments not only take HSV to new heights, but also a brand new market, Orlando. HSV serves 1.2 million passengers annually. At the 50th anniversary mark, big things are still happening both at the airport and in the region. Panalpina currently provides 747-8 service nonstop to Europe, Asia, Mexico, and Brazil. Today, HSV is the 17th busiest airport for international cargo in the country. Senator Richard Shelby was pivotal in helping land a $29.1 million grant to complete the taxiway improvement project on the East Runway. This upgrade will provide better safety as well as open up more 747 parking spaces to help with air cargo expansions in the future. HSV also partnered with FlyQuest and Signature Flight Support to build a mobile classroom This motor coach turned learning facility will tour the region, exposing kids to the world of aviation to do its part in helping reduce the nationwide pilot shortage. Huntsville International Airport is moving closer to the goal of becoming one of the first commercial airports to land a vehicle from space, the Sierra Nevada Corporation's Dream Chaser. Over the last 50 years, much has been accomplished. A cotton field is now a truly unique multimodal transportation facility. This is the Port of Huntsville today. Huntsville International Airport, the International Intermodal Center, and Jetplex Industrial Park, complemented by the contract operations of the Sheraton's Four Points Hotel, Sunset Landing Golf Course, Signature Flight Support, and Foreign Trade Zone number 83. And in the words of Executive Director Rick Tucker, it's the people who make the difference. The people who set this airport apart. The people are the heart of the Port of Huntsville. The Board of Directors has also been an integral part in making this airport successful. Trey Bentley, Bill Johnston, Chairman Betty Fletcher, Mark McDaniel, and Dr. Carl Gessler. The Port of Huntsville is an economic cornerstone for the 21st century and beyond. And with a vision for the future, we are the Port of Huntsville.